right on time. Mr. Mayor, 6 o'clock?
You don't say. I will now call to order the Riverside City Council meeting for Monday, May 19th, 2025 at 6 p.m. Mr. Law Director, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Denning?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Fry?
Here.
Mr. Joseph? Ms. Lomatch?
Here.
Mr. Maxfield?
Present.
Mayor Williams?
Here. Do we have a motion to excuse our absent member?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion from the Deputy Mayor and a second from Mr. Brown. All those in favor of excusing our absent member signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Mr. Manager, any additions or corrections to the agenda as presented?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Do we have a motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Denning and a second from Mr. Maxfield to approve the agenda as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Agenda is approved. If you're able, please join us to rise and pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. If we have anyone joining us tonight who wishes to speak on any agenda or non-agenda items, there are slips in the back of this room. You can turn them into our law director and acting council clerk for this evening, Mr. Miller, who I'm sure will do an okay job.
Just okay.
Hopeful.
Maybe.
I set the bar appropriately.
Thank you.
We've all had a chance to look at our meeting minutes from May 5th. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes as published?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Denning and a second from Mr. Maxfield to approve our meeting minutes from May 5th as presented or as published. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. On to public comment for agenda items, of which we have two turned in, I believe. And we will first hear from Angel Patterson, speaking on agenda item 10A2. Angel, if you could please give your name and address for the record. Thank you for joining us this evening. And you had two different things to,
It kind of addresses both of those.
Okay.
In a way, yeah.
is 3 minutes going to be,
It's enough. Yep.
okay.
I
Floor
mean-
is yours.
Yeah. Angel Patterson, 102 Prince Albert Boulevard.
Thank you.
The first thing, I would like to mention the new pump track at Roar Park. Me, my husband, and our teenagers stopped by the grand opening. All of us, including myself, tried out that track. It's great. I think it adds value to the neighborhood. The kids are thrilled about it. While I was there, Mayor Williams, Mrs. Lomatch, and I believe Mr. Roush were there as well. I appreciate you guys coming out and supporting the neighborhood, and thank you to everybody who helped make that happen for the kids. Now, regarding the project for the Woodman-Springfield Street intersection that is on the agenda tonight, if I understand correctly from the meeting packet, a roundabout would be installed to decrease cars going off the road into the museum fence, increase travel options for pedestrians, create land development opportunities, and look more attractive at a cost to the city after the grant part of $400,000. I understand that traffic circles statistically reduce accidents, but I have questions about a roundabout at this particular intersection at this time. When I think of locations with a lot of accidents in the area, that's not the first location that comes to mind. I'm wondering if you have the statistics for accidents there that you can share with us. And as far as cars leaving the road and hitting the museum fence, are there more cost-effective options to reduce road departures, such as anti-skid, road surfacing, or barriers? And can the base help with this cost since their fence is the one that's being destroyed? Regarding land development, the city has empty spaces to fill already. Are there developers currently willing to sign contracts to build at this location, or is this part of a bigger plan to do something with these buildings? I have concerns that this is another case of throw money at something to make it look pretty in the hopes that businesses want to come here. As far as funding, if this project and/or grant were not approved, what would the city do with that $400,000? I think that the people who live here would like to know what other options are available for those funds. And finally, what is the expected impact for drivers during construction, specifically the project timeline, expected travel delays, potential detours, et cetera? Any feedback you can provide that would help the residents understand this potential decision and trust the process would be appreciated. Thank you.
Okay. I'll speak very briefly, then I'll hand it over to the city manager just to add a little bit of context and make sure that everybody kind of understands correctly what it is that we're working on with the Woodman-Harshman project and the phases of it. In general, the section of road traveling north from Airway on Harshman towards Route 4 is traveled very fast. The traffic lights at Woodman and Airway were replaced a few years ago because of the high incidence of not only traffic accidents but fatalities at that intersection. The presence of the wall that separates Harshman has created a high level of speed that occurs ever since that was put in almost 45, 50 years ago, I think. And the solutions that Josh and working, not just the city, but working in concert with MVRPC, with Wright-Patterson, with the Ohio Department of Transportation, have looked at alternative road structures to calm traffic. And I'll hand it over to Josh in a second here, but the last thing that I would want to say, because he and I were talking about this at length earlier this week when we met with our congressional delegation at Senator Moreno's office, Senator Husted's office, and Congressman Turner's office, is that we feel like there's an opportunity to present the entrance to the museum in a very appealing way by reworking some traffic interactions, not necessarily us trying to prop up property values. I don't think we're doing this project so we can get developable land. I think that could be a nice byproduct of proper resetting of that traffic equation that we have today. But I'll hand it over to Josh now, but I want folks to understand that this is part of a very, very long-term, very large plan to make that road safer to travel and more beneficial to both the city and to the installation, which is next door.
The thing that I'll add to that, really there are two things. The first is this is a corridor that we've been working on now since the early days of 2022. I could go on for 8 hours about it if you wanted me to. So we should set up a meeting, happy to do that, and kind of give more of a thorough briefing about sort of what's led us to this point. And on that note, I'll be in front of council with something similar in June with sort of a high level, here's where we've been, here's where we are, here's where we're going. But I think it's important, particularly for the item that's on tonight's agenda, which is about a track application. Two things to bear in mind. Most road grants, well, really all road grants that I'm familiar with, are pay to play in the sense that cities have to put up money in order to get any money. There's no free money generally for roads, even if, and this has happened to us, when Congressman Turner's office came out of the woodwork and gave us $1.5 million to do design out there, that money wasn't free. We had to budget local match for that free money that was dropped on our head. So that's why there's $375,000 in this year's budget to do design on that corridor. Even though we're getting $1.5 million for free, we have to pay local match in order to use it. So there are, folks, if you're out there and you were in the Citizens Academy, we had a fun phrase, there's no such thing as a free lunch. This is one of those areas where there's no such thing as a free lunch. So in order to go apply for grant dollars and in order to be successful in those awards, we have to commit to match that award with some amount of local funding. So that's really the purpose. I'm kind of preempting the resolution intro, but that's really the purpose for the item being on the agenda tonight, is as a function of that deadline. We have to go into this application and any other federal or other application with some sense of what we would be willing to front in order to show our state and federal partners that we have skin in the game and that we're willing to put cash up in order to make these improvements to the roadway. The last thing that I'll leave with really is just that the item that was in the packet, the Woodman Gateway handout, was the flyer that we took to the senator's offices and to Congressman Turner's office. And that is a flyer that's been circulating regionally at the base with our regional partners. The purpose of that really is to show people a concept that has come out of this 2-year plus, 3-year plus long process of looking at that roadway. None of it is set in stone. So what you're seeing in that is a visualization designed to generate some excitement and get people talking about what's possible in this corridor. But not all the engineering has been completed to prove that we could actually even build it, which is why we're trying to go get the money. And those engineering costs are significant. So the first $1.5 million that we got from Congressman Turner, we can use to start preliminary engineering. Usually there's 3 rounds of environmental engineering alone. And part of the reason for the track application would be to ask for enough money to hopefully get us through the second round of environmental engineering. But as most folks out there know, and folks maybe who are familiar with the area know, there are at least 3 landfills underneath those curves. Landfills being contaminated areas, contaminated zones. So one of the questions we have to answer by spending this money to do the engineering to find out is, can we even build this without disturbing that contamination? And if we do have to disturb the contamination, how deep in the weeds is it going to cost, or how much time and money is it going to cost to remediate that to solve some of these roadway problems? So that's kind of it in a nutshell. This is one small component of a multi-year-long process, none of which has been finalized, all of which we're trying to go get good answers to. And I'm certainly happy to meet anytime we can find a good, convenient time to kind of get way down in the weeds on a lot of it, because it is very complex, and it's also not just our project. The base is at the table. We have community and other regional stakeholders at the table through the initial grant process, our neighbors, the Dayton Development Coalition, the region,
MVRPC.
MVRPC. There are a lot of folks who are interested in this besides just the folks you see on this dais or folks in the community as well, so. Sorry, I
No,
droned
that's,
on a
that's,
bit,
I
but-
was, I appreciate the background, and I think we're going to get more of that when we get to the resolution itself.
There's a little bit to be said, too. This goes way, way back, and when we first became a city and the base wanted to give the city property that's behind the fence, behind the Wendy's, and the city had to say no thank you because the cleanup of the environmental issues are just gigantic. I mean, they're just monumental. Nobody knows what's under there. That's the problem. There's no inventory of what airplanes, what fuel tanks, whatever has been buried under. And you might wonder about all of the open space on this side of the museum, where the airplane, the pretty airplane is at the entrance. What's under there? We don't know. And so to clean that up is, and to build around it. This is not a new issue. This traffic issue on Harshman Road has been on the front burner for a long time, and it's a good thing to see it moving.
We have another citizen who is asked to speak on an agenda item, and that's Frida Patterson, asking to speak on Resolution 10A1. Frida, thanks for joining us this evening. Please give your name and address for the record, and please keep your comments at 3 minutes.
Frida Patterson, 335 Marjorie Avenue, Riverside, Ohio. I likewise am speaking similar to Angel. My concern is all 4 roundabouts. And to put a land use map out there and us citizens to see it. And then my understanding, like you were saying, and somebody else had mentioned to me, that this is not something that they're actually planning as 4 full roundabouts. Why do we put stuff out there that gets us all in uproar if this is not the plan? First of all, if that is correct. If the plan is for these 4 roundabouts, once you cross that airway red light, there are 2 within a quarter of a mile. Now, you're going to have, like typical, your people speeding through to get through that yellow light to beat it. There's no way to prevent this. So now you're coming up on this roundabout, which is slower traffic. So you're going to have more accidents by people rear-ending each other and just being stupid trying to get through that light before it changes. I'm more on the lines of, I thought we were trying to straighten that road to prevent some of these slide-offs. So that's been the talk for years, Josh. I'm not sure, but trust me, that's been the talk for years. I just seen you shake your head. But the problem, my understanding was the curves and them going so fast that, especially if it's wet, then they slide off.
Flip that, Frida. It's the speed of travel. It's the speed of travel, then the curves. Because there's
Right.
other parts of our city and region that have curves that are as steep and severe, but, and I promise I'll let you finish, but I just want to make clear that what we want to do is slow traffic down because
So
they're
why not
traveling way-
reduce the speed limit and have our police given tickets if they're flying over? Because that speed limit's high right there, especially with all those curves. We still need some type of divider, even if it's like the metal ones, but people can't go through them with the thick like, almost like, how do you say, a braided wire or whatever it is,
Yeah,
instead of concrete that's crumbling, and straighten up the road some, reduce the speed limit. Because all I'm seeing, especially the two on the other side of Airway, if they're roundabouts, I'm seeing issues like crazy. I drive to one to my sister's house, which is out in the country, very hardly traveled. And I cannot tell you, and I'm not there a lot because she does live too far away. The few times that I go through there, there's always, almost always, one car who is totally confused and stops right in the middle where they're supposed to be continuing. Imagine that happening in front of Airway Shopping Center. What's going to happen? Boom, 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 boom. You've got 5 cars rear-ending each other. So I think the roundabouts definitely need re-looked at. And my understanding is this is, like she said, a part with Right Pat. And I understand to a certain point, but if they're not divvying up money to help in this project, I'm sorry, but why are we including them in our plans? As far as Woodman goes itself. That's, I just feel like take 400,000 towards some roads instead of no roundabouts and crazy stuff that I'm seeing on that plan. Thank you.
thank you, Frida.
And to clarify, Frida, the only reason I was shaking my head while you said straighten the road is as much as I would love to straighten that road, the federal government is not going to give us the right of way to do that. So it's,
Plus the
Yeah, we want to.
contamination.
I would love to. Well, plus the contamination.
Contamination is why
would
those
add to
curves
it.
are there.
But that was another thing I wanted to mention, though.
Can you come to
If we
the
try
mic?
do
Frida,
any
make-
roundabouts.
Make sure you talk in the mic so we can have.
If we try to do any roundabouts, wouldn't that also then be a concern of the contamination? Wouldn't there still be more monies? We're investing, if we go for this grant, basically, we're not sure that that 400,000 is going to be our cost. If, like you said, if we get into all this contaminations issues and everything, are we now $1 million in?
No, that's not how it works. So what happens is we would pay, so let's say, for example, the way that ideally this works is if we go for track, I'm just going to give this will be my prep for the resolution, right? So if council approves this resolution to do the track funding, what would happen is we would prepare an application and ask track for $1.5 million to do phase 2 environmental design. Nothing's getting built. It's just do the engineering, get into do the testing into the ground to get through that environmental design process. And our match on that alone would be the 400,000 if
So
we are
we're-
awarded in that amount. And then all we've done is jumped that one hurdle. Then there are other hurdles later on that we would have to go find money for.
So we're blowing 400,000 just to determine how contaminated and everything it is under there?
No, it's not just a question of contamination. What happens is it is a process of getting a roadway like that designed and built. You have to jump through a series of design and construction hurdles in order to get the approvals, in this case from the feds as well as the state, in order to go through and redo that road. So this is part of the process of rebuilding the road.
What is the average cost to one of our streets, to repaving? Do we know?
I don't know, but let's give you an indication here. The little section from Woodman, Phase 1, from 35 up to Eastman, it's one block, it's about $6 million.
Yes, but there's a lot more to it than a normal street in our plats.
Sure, but this is Woodman, is
Right.
what I'm
Well, that's
talking-
what I'm asking, do we know an average cost to repave one normal road in our neighborhoods?
Off the top of my head, I don't.
Because how many roads could we do with that 400,000?
It's a fair point. I don't want to get too much into a back and
I'm
forth.
just really stuck on this 400,000
I hear ya.
whenever we've got, that just,
I hear you,
it
but
seems like there should be cheaper ways that we can make Woodman safer without going to that extreme, because now we're going from 400,000 to that's just for this, that's nothing. So we're looking at a total of what by the time this is done? Millions and millions? Do we even know at this point? I feel like we're putting, again, a cart before a horse. Well, we don't know what we're going to end up with. There's got to be other alternatives that are cheaper and permanent still, or at least 20 years lasting or something, rather than continuing to, we're throwing money out, again, I feel left and right, without an end result. Like, this is what it's going to cost, this is it, period, to present to the residents. I want to know what's the final cost of all this, and nobody's going to be able to tell me, correct?
well, no, because the engineering hasn't been done.
And that seems
So-
like an issue. I'm speaking for most residents. I've even had phone calls before leaving my house tonight. I'm speaking for the majority of the residents that that's an issue. If we can't come up with a complete project cost on the city's behalf, then, I mean, us as residents are kind of blind to what's going on with our money.
Frida, this is a multi-year, multi-phase project we've been talking about for at least the time I've been mayor. This is not.
I understand
Josh
that,
didn't cook this
but-
up last night, and I
But we're
don't think.
doing,
What-
I thought we all, my understanding, and I think most of the residents, was that this was set in stone. This is what it was going to cost, and this is what we were doing. Now we're hearing, no, that, we knew there were separate phases, but we thought the money had already been accounted for, blah, 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 and it was just the time frame of doing them so that all this construction all the way down Woodman wasn't happening at once, that it was being done in phases.
Correct.
And now we're hearing that wasn't the money, just the money either. All the money's being done in phases.
The whole project's done in phases.
Well, I mean, that's not been put out there. I'm being
I would
honest.
respectfully and vehemently disagree on that, because we have had public meetings, we've had open houses.
Telling us that this is not the complete money and we're going to have to go for more grants, more funding, more.
Frida, we're always going to have to go for more grants. We're always going to have to go find money we can leverage. The whole
But for
point of
the
this.
same project.
Yeah,
Si-
because Woodman and Harshman's our main
Okay, well,
north-south
that was
arterial.
not made clear to residents.
Frida.
How many in here?
Hold on, Frida, we're not
Yes.
we're not going to do an open, we're not going to
Well,
do a town hall
I'm telling you,
here.
I was getting phone calls and looked at the messages.
fine, that's fine.
That was not clear to us residents.
But I would respectfully disagree. This is the main north-south arterial for the entire city. And I feel like you're acting right now like we just came up with this last night and we're springing this on you. That could not be
I
further
feel
from the
like
case.
that about this. Now it's got to be done by May 31st, this new grant.
Because
you guys
there is a
found.
deadline that Josh has to meet for the state track
Okay,
application.
I understand that,
To try to
yes.
leverage more money. So if
All
we're get-
grants do have deadlines.
If we have a 5-to-1 leverage that he has available to him, should we tell him to sit on his hands and not get the free money that we could potentially get?
That's not what I'm saying.
That's what I'm hearing.
saying the whole project, from residents' views, was already figured out and done, and we didn't know we were going to continuously be putting money into more and more of the sections. We thought that original money deal was done. I mean, I know I didn't take it that way, and like I said, the ones I've talked to didn't either.
So Frida, respectfully, if I can, I think the most productive thing we can do at this point is we need to meet. Because we don't have enough time in this meeting tonight or in 3 minutes.
Right.
Or in the hour that we're here to really fully digest a lot of this. I'm curious where you've gotten some of these impressions, because I don't feel like we've communicated that, so.
Well, the
you know,
problem is lack of communicating that, hey, this is an ongoing project as far as
So that
funds.
is
We're going to have to
something-
keep putting more and more funds. Please, Mayor, don't
That is something that we can.
smile, yes, because that's irritating.
I-
I'm sorry,
I-
I'm upset tonight because I feel like, once again, we're being blindsided. I'm not the only one feels that.
Okay,
And
I completely understand. That's
And
why I
I'm
want.
real funny about looks and stuff. You
I
should know that. I
know.
feel disrespected
I'm-
at this point.
I apologize for that.
Thank you.
I'm very surprised, and that's why I.
And I would already came to you guys if I wasn't blindsided today. I would have already been to you guys about this.
Right, that's why I'm surprised. I thought I've.
And if I'm
So let's figure
blindsided,
it
I
out.
could tell you there's a lot more that are.
So let's figure this out. How about that? How about we figure this out, and how about we find a time that the city manager at the very least can communicate the scope of this and.
And I think we need an actual land use put out there for the residents to see what are your guys' ideas, even if they're not set in stone.
Mm-hmm.
But like these roundabouts and stuff, we need an idea. What are your ideas that you want to
Mm-hmm.
see happen to that? Now, if it has to change, it has to change. But to throw something out there and it's, oh, that's up in the air. Well, we need more information because the
Yeah.
land use plan that's out there to us, we're looking at that and saying, well, this is a go. This is what this is going for.
And I think a conceptual view is a little bit different than throwing it up in the air. But I agree with you that we need to have, if there needs to be more clarity, let's provide more clarity.
Yes,
I'll go back
please.
to the original public comment from Angel, that what we did at Roar Park with community input and community voices to get something the community seems to love, and Angel was on that track herself on a bike, I saw it, that we can all enjoy that. So let's find that same process and get answers to these questions about Harshman.
Yes, please.
And I apologize for the looks I made. I was surprised. That's all.
Well, so was I today when I pulled up the packet, so.
Can
All
I,
right.
can I
Okay,
say
thank
one
you.
more thing?
Yeah, Sarah, you have something?
To put it in perspective, and I know it's really, really hard, I've been looking at this kind of stuff for a long time. The bridge at 35 first started in 1998 with the engineering and the environmental studies and all of that, and it took that long to finish it. So all I'm telling you is there are micro steps. You can call them big steps or micro steps or whatever, and so much of it is legally bound to what you can and can't do and how you do it and by what time. And
Right.
and the feds were involved, the state was involved. It just takes time, and it's all incremental. It doesn't happen in one fell swoop. And I don't know that there's anybody in this room or any room in this country that can tell you what the full scope will cost. That just doesn't happen that way.
Because of the number of years it's going to
Yeah.
take to get it done. That's why.
It just doesn't happen that way.
But it just seems weird to me that just for one street, I mean, we've kept putting out Phase 1's being done this day, Phase 2, this year or whatever, Phase 2, Phase 3.
Yeah.
But never nothing in addition every time about the funds it's going to take to do it.
Fair enough.
That's
And
that's
that-
where I'm
that
hearing
part I'll
the
agree
same
with you
thing
on.
from everybody else. And
and-
nobody, well, I don't want to say nobody, excuse me. Most of us are not happy over these roundabouts that are on that land use plan.
Okay.
Just because
Conceptual roundabouts.
of the amount of traffic that road sees every day. I mean, like I said, I've seen them out in the country. I still see people that don't know how, but I mean, it's not a problem there. They stop, there's a car 100 feet behind them. They've got plenty of time to stop and wait for them to figure out how to work it.
Yeah.
But when you're on a busy intersection like that, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just,
And the need to make that road safer is very clear to us. So that's why we're looking
Right.
at all options. And I hope that you can see that as a good intention on our part.
oh, it definitely needs to be safer. I mean, I agree. I just feel like there's other ways that it could be done.
All right, so let's have a conversation about that.
That works.
Thank you. We have public comment from Chris Couch. Is Chris here? Yes, thank you for being with us this evening. You wanted to comment on resolution, our new business item number 10. Thank you for being with us this evening. Please state your name and address for the record, and please keep your comment to 3 minutes.
It's Christiana Couch,
Thank you.
You can move that down
1591
if you-
Beatrice Drive,
Yeah.
There you go.
Yes.
Riverside. My issue is on this roundabout thing also. That is a lot of money, even if you propose to get the money so you can propose your ideas to build this. And whenever you get to a roundabout, I don't know how many people's even been on roundabouts, but they're slow. All that traffic that we have is so fast, and them coming up Harshman from Woodman and going around, the best thing would be to do is just take the speed limit down. Because those people are going around there faster than they're supposed to be going, or put a light in between Airway, down there by Airway and before you get up to the bridge up here by the park. It's ridiculous. Roundabouts is just a waste of time, because you're going to have people going through there a lot slower. It's going to take a lot more time, and there's a lot of cars. You can go over to Brant Pike off of Harshman, turn on Brant Pike, and you go up to Huber. The curve is way steeper than it is over here. There's no barrier in between, and people don't hit each other. So they need to learn to drive or slow down.
Yes, we want to slow them down.
And that,
Absolutely.
take the speed limit down. There's no, I just don't think, I think it's a waste of money. And not only, our taxes will go up and everything else. And I just don't see that that's a good project. That's my opinion.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time this evening. We really appreciate it.
I think it's important to reiterate that the fact that this is just a concept, and once the more engineering is done, they may come to the conclusion that there may only be one roundabout, or there may only be two.
There might be none.
There may be none. I personally, my personal opinion is, I don't believe that we need 4 roundabouts there. I don't believe in that. But once again, engineering has to be done in order to figure that out, and then once the design's in place, then it'll be for the best.
And Andy, what do you do for a living?
School bus driver.
Yes, so you're driving a very large vehicle on busy roads all the
Yes.
time.
Around a roundabout. Yeah, that, yeah.
But we're not voting on roundabouts tonight, thankfully. Okay, thank you. We'll move on to new business, of which we have two resolutions that we've talked about a little bit so far. So,
Move
Mr.
to
Manager,
approve.
we have a motion to approve Resolution 3030. Josh, you want to just give a very brief synopsis on that for anybody who's following along?
This is the Wright Pat Regional Council of Governments, the Air Force, the Wright Pat Compatibility Use Plan, the CUP, which was adopted by the COG late last year, beginning of this year, and the COG is seeking member communities to also ratify that plan. So that is, we discussed that last meeting, and that's before you this evening.
Okay, we have a motion from Ms. Lomach.
Second.
Second, Mr. Denning. Is there any further discussion on the COG land use plan? All those in favor of approving Resolution 3030 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. And 3031, we've talked about already a little bit.
Yes, if you approve this, it would authorize me or my designee, which in this case may be the Montgomery County Transportation Improvement District, to compile an application for the track committee for, again, Phase 2 environmentals out here at the, within the boundaries of that Woodman Gateway project. Strictly speaking, we do not have to apply, we do not have to submit an application with the promise that we will make a local match. If we don't have a local match, we're not going to get any points on our application, and we're not likely to get awarded at all. But it is an option. So our recommendation was to ask the track committee for $1.5 million, which is the same amount that Congressman Turner gave us for design Phase 1, and we would come up with a match, if awarded, of up to $400,000 for that. That could come from a variety of sources. A worst-case scenario would be it would just come out of our savings account. We have a little bit more than $5 million in fund balance currently. I don't say that lightly because we're trying to preserve and maintain fund balance, but at the same time, in order to leverage those dollars to try to get other dollars to continue economic development and road projects and everything else, that's part of the calculus that's before you. We would not have to encumber those funds today. It would, if we submitted the application and if we were awarded, how to cobble that $400,000 together would become part of our 2026 budget process. And I would look to the TID for some other input there. There may be infrastructure loans, OPWC funds potentially, or other buckets of money we could dip into to reduce that amount of local match on our behalf.
So the local match, if required, could be up to $400,000, but you're saying that there's a number of ways we could also mitigate that cost.
I would fight as hard as I can to effectively reduce that on our
Yeah.
behalf, of course. But at a worst case, it would come out of fund balance in the general fund.
And for our viewers and those what would be the timeline for that, you said the 2026 budget?
For that discussion, yes,
Yes.
if we are awarded.
When would we,
Explain the track. What track? You're using an acronym that people,
Yeah, it's the track is the Transportation Review Advisory Council, and in a nutshell, it's a state-funded program. It's a competitive application process, and it tries to target large capacity or infrastructure redevelopment projects. So it's a whole committee that determines what projects will be funded based on a very complicated set of methodologies and math, part of which includes how much money is the local government or the entity asking for this money bringing to the table. And based on this year's scoring criteria, that's where our recommended $400,000 comes into play.
okay. Is there a,
Move to
mo-
approve.
Second.
we have a motion from Mr. Denning and a second from the Deputy Mayor. Any further discussion from members of council? All those in favor of Resolution 3031 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Mr. Miller, are there any slips turned in for public comment on non-agenda items?
There are not, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we'll move on the agenda to our discussion items, of which we have a few. I think rental licensing status update is one of them.
That
We
is
have our talented Ms. Holt with us tonight.
correct. We do have the talented Ms. Holt with us this evening. Can you pull a mic your way, Naya? And then I'll try to lean out here and maintain eye contact so you can tell me when to flip these slides through. But as many of you will recall, we adopted the rental license registration ordinance in 2023, if memory serves. So it's been a minute. But Naya and her team have been diligently working on implementation for this ordinance, and so she's got this update for you all this evening. Take it away.
So I will go over for all of you and those at home and in the audience, a little refresher about this program and its purpose and what it is. Just a little background. When we started our comprehensive plan, this was one of the things that we dug into. Around that time, in 2021, our rates of renter occupied housing was at just over 38%. And now the American Community Survey finds that our rental property has gone to almost 45%. And that's of our 10,000 households. We want to make sure that all of our residents, whether they're owners or renters, have quality housing, that it's safe and secure. And that is the main purpose of this program, to ensure that our property maintenance standards for all housing types are being enforced, and that we can verify the compliance with our property maintenance codes. So a little background. As you can see, we did have an ordinance that was passed originally in 2024. There was some changes at the state level that required us to pause that and really just looking at some of those changes in our rental levels and some other things, staffing-wise. We decided to formally repeal and replace that in 2023 with the ordinance you see here, and really look at bringing that forward again. So the current one, like the one before, requires that all residential property or owners that are own rental property register with the city. So we're gonna go to the next one. So wanted to say why this is important. So these are actual properties that we've, and our department in code enforcement and has seen out there. We want to, like I said, improve the quality of housing for all of our residents, whether they're renting or not. We want to ensure that they comply with all levels of laws, whether it's our own, the county, the state, to make sure that they're in compliance with those regulations. And looking at our peers in other communities, it's a proven way to make sure that the housing quality is improved. We want to make sure we're in communication with our landlords so that they understand what our codes are and what those compliance standards are. And we want to make sure we have that data, because if we have that rental data, we can share that with our team members in fire and police. So if there's an emergency in those houses, which has happened before, there's been a water break, and like, well, who's the property manager? We can get that information to the fire department relatively easy. When if it's 5 o'clock in the morning, which I've gotten that call before. So here's some highlights from this new program. It's going to be online registration for increasing time management and efficiency. We want to, like I said, make that connection between our landlords, so it educates them on the regulations, like lead-based paints, some tips on that, some tips on how they can improve some ground cover. Like, a lot of people don't know that ground cover can help improve erosion, things like that, to improve the quality of housing. Also, it's information that they can give to their tenants instead, especially if they are allowing their tenants to take more of an upfront role in keeping up the property. They have that information as well. And then we're also looking into landlords who register and maintain properties that are compliant. They'll be eligible for certain benefits that can kind of reduce possible costs and renewal and things of that nature, because what we're looking for in the long term is a partnership and compliance. I'm going to move to the next one. So this is more of what we've done to communicate so far. We've been working with our communication manager on getting information out in the newsletter that went out to many people. We sent out a letter to known landlords or property managers that we found through Montgomery County's registration process. And then once we get to an actual live date, which we're looking to like mid to late June, we'll do a follow-up reminder for those we have knowledge of, for them to register. We'll also do a final reminder, because our target end date for this initial registration period would be September 30th, letting them know, hey, come on in, register. If they have questions, we're open to having meetings, talking with landlords. We're setting up those as we speak. And so anyone who's out there who owns rental property and is wondering how they can prepare, the first step, because it will be required for registration, is making sure you're registered with Montgomery County. It's also required by the state for you to do so. And gather necessary information, which would be getting a tenant list together, getting information from your local taxes, because that's something as well. And then we have a interior self-inspection kind of review, which is like our property maintenance code. So if you have questions about that, we're open. And we'll just be putting all this information on our website. We've been, like I said, working with Katie on getting a dedicated webpage with all this information will be available. So that's it in a nutshell.
Questions on our rental registration program? All right. Well, thank you for the update, Naya. We certainly appreciate it. And we'll go on to the fee schedule update. Is that Mr. Manager? Is that a combo?
It's a combo.
Looks like it's back to Naya. Yes,
It's
ma'am.
going to Naya first.
Okay, save the best for first.
Correct. Well, I mean, I don't want to insult Beth. I mean, you know,
She
we have
already-
a lot of bests coming into this
Well,
combo.
yeah, we got to talk about our bike track too, so.
True. Okay, so we'll do, let me pull this up here on the right screen. Naya, why don't you take us away here on this
All
one?
right. So I'll give a little bit of background on this one as well. Last year, we decided to consolidate all of our fees into one master fee schedule. Before, we had fees in all places in our ordinances, codes. Sometimes they were in policies that were in dusty books. But now we have them in one place, so it's easier for staff, residents, contractors, developers to find out what the cost of city services are and locate them quickly and appropriately. And in that master fee schedule, it also references the legislative authority, and it has a description of what those fees are. You can go on to the next slide. But we want to make sure that those fees are accurate and reflect the labor and materials that is used by city staff. So there are some suggested fees that we're going to bring before you. One of them is an increase in our block party and parade. Best team, when they get the call, they will block off streets for those. There is some coordination with that. So we're just doing a slight $10 increase for that. For my own department, we are doing an abatement action fee. We've been doing this, but we haven't put that into the fee schedule. And what that is when our contractors go out, they take up the junk, all that. We do process that and pass that on to the property owner. So just putting that very clearly in the fee schedule. And then, as we've been preparing for this rental registration, we've been talking with our peers and seeing what some of the best practices are in those year and a half since it was passed. And there's been some revisions that we want to put forward, like capping the fees, making sure that there is some changes. We've put parcel before, but now we want to put location. As some of you may know, we have parcels that are, or properties that are chopped up into several parcels. So it makes more sense to say location instead of parcel, because a property could, be straddling two parcels. So clarifying that language in the fee schedule, for example. And then the police will discuss more of their fees at a later date. Beth, do you want to take this over?
Sure.
Do you want your PowerPoint?
We don't need it.
Okay.
It's just there for backup. So, cemetery fees, we have the Harshman Cemetery. And we
we haven't been selling new plots for a number of years, but in the time I've been here, I think we've had 3 requests for burials, and we've had fees, but this is just formalizing them into the master fee schedule, like Naya had said. So looking at, and previously, we did not distinguish that there's bigger difference in the equipment, labor, and materials to prepare, open and close a grave for a casket versus an urn. And the urn fee was the same as the casket, which really didn't make a lot of sense based on our equipment, labor, materials. So the current cemetery casket burial fee, it's $1,000, and that's what it has been. But for the urn, it's just $100. So just to formalize those fees that we have been charging but had never accounted for in the master fee schedule. And then our second area of park shelters and just park usage in general, good news is we are very popular. And now with the pump track in, Aurora Park's leading the way for shelter reservations. But I've been just trying to formalize what we're doing because you might call and say, oh, I want a shelter, but it's, I want it from noon to 2, but then, and you pay the same fee as somebody else who wants it from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. So we were really looking at how do we allow people to plan their events better. So we've split it. We still have the resident and the non-resident fee. It's the same, but we broke it up into half-day chunks. So 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., we allowed an hour in between, and then 3 p.m. to 8 p.m., knowing that folks, if you're having a party, you kind of need, we were having where somebody was still trying to take their balloons and streamers down. The new people were coming in, trying to put their food trays out, so it was a little bit congested. So just streamlining that. But if you want it for the whole day, the fee is double. So it's still residents, $15, whole day, $30 for the shelter. Non-residents, $25 for the half day, $50 for the whole day. So just looking at streamlining that. Our field usage fee remains at $50. We are super excited to have like the soccer club. I was approached the other night by a softball team. We want to encourage people to use our fields because that establishes just good fun and people at the park. Eyes on things. It makes everyone more comfortable spending time there when you see people just playing sports and you can expect you aren't the only one there. There's other people around. So keeping that at $50. So nothing new, just formalizing it into the schedule. And then our special event fee has been at $75, but we've worked hard to formalize that process, which of course goes through our Parks and Rec Committee for approval. So not new other than splitting the shelters into morning and afternoon reservations.
So this is just sort of a roll-up of some of the things that staff have just discussed. And just to be clear, I mean, we're really just trying to set the table for this conversation here this evening. I'm probably not even going to bring you a resolution at the next meeting. I think we can hold this for additional discussion, especially since we are still in the process of looking through some of the data for the police body cam conversation as well. Just to drive the point home, when council adopts an ordinance and then we as staff are tasked with trying to start to carry that out, oftentimes we will come across things where the ordinance may be drafted one way, but as a practical matter of implementation, questions come up. So Naya's suggestions about, for example, in our fee structure for the rental registrations, focusing on the word location rather than the word parcel may make things a little bit easier for the landlords and any other staff or the public to help actually figure out how does this ordinance apply if I'm a landlord. And we can handle that through this fee process rather than having to totally rewrite the ordinance in this case. So those sorts of changes are partly implementation kinds of changes, and in other circumstances, like cemetery being a good example, these are just things that we have always done in the past, that we have, state or other ordinance authority to back us on doing, but they've not been written down in a way that is easily retrievable for folks. And we want to get that put into this list so that there's one place everybody can go that's got all of these things in it and it's consistent, and we have the backing there as well for why the fees are being applied, those sorts of things. So for the purposes of this evening, just wanted to preview the overall context with you all. These rates have been developed in large part based on our past practice or what our neighbors are doing, or to help directly recover costs in some circumstances. But we will leave you with this, answer any questions you have over the coming weeks, and then add the police body cam to this discussion once that data analysis is a little bit further down the track.
Questions on our fee presentation for this evening as we move forward?
When
All
we-
right. Go ahead, Brenda. Sorry.
When we get the changes in our packet, will it have the markup from the change from and the change to?
Yes, we can certainly do that. And in most cases in the table that I just showed, these would be new additions, and so we can mark those in the final deliverable.
Okay.
And give you kind of a companion chart like this as well.
That would be great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, and then any other items from the manager?
Just a few. First of all, a huge thank you to everybody who assisted with the pump track in Aurora Park and the installation, the procurement, installation, configuration, and even the concept development and the process. I know we followed a somewhat extensive process to try to engage the neighborhood, had meetings in one of the churches up that way. Parks and Recreation was very involved as well. So there were a lot of folks, not just here and behind the scenes, but out in the community who really helped to make that happen. And I want to acknowledge that because I think that is a great example of a community asset that already has gotten a lot of love. We are very excited about it, and I think there's opportunities to continue building on that in the future as well. So thank you to everybody who played a part in that process. Quick update on the newsletter front. So Katie, in conjunction with Beth and Naya and Michaela in the back, have cross-referenced the list of parcel addresses that are on file with the county with what our mailer had on file. They did find some that needed to be added. I think there was a comment at a public meeting a while ago about that. We appear to have trued that up with our printer and distributor. So those newsletters should go out in the next couple of weeks, and there are additional addresses that should be captured as part of that process. Incidentally, I think some of this boiled down to when you use a third-party service to mail things like that, you're either mailing too broadly because they're going to go based on zip code, in which case we're mailing to Dayton and Beaver Creek and Fairborn and everywhere else, or too narrowly because it's an in-house list and things over time change. But I think we're there now. It's been updated. So I'm looking forward to that. And the final thing is that our offices, city administrative offices, will be closed Monday. That's May 26th in observance of Memorial Day. And a good day to remember everybody who fought and lost life, limb, defending our country. So that's all I
All
have.
right. We will move into council member discussion, and I will start with Ms. Lomatch.
Chamber dinner tomorrow night at the German restaurant on Valley Street. So, and I want to thank the service department. They did a great job, but along with it, they were having fun, and that was good to see, that they were enjoying what they were doing, and I like seeing that. So, thank you to service department specifically.
Mr. Brown?
Nothing in particular, except I do want to just publicly say congratulations to my daughter Hannah, who will be graduating valedictorian from Temple
Whoa.
Christian School this coming Thursday. So
Congratulations.
congratulations, Hannah. I love you, and I'm very proud of you, sweetie.
I will add congratulations to all of our graduates from Stebbins and from Carroll that graduated last week. We plan to have the vows and sows from our city schools in next council meeting to honor them and congratulate their parents, really, and wish them well in their next steps. It's something we've done for the last couple of years. I've been mayor. I really enjoyed that. It's great to hear the young people talk about what their plans are and what they got from our schools here in the city, whether it was the folks in Mad River or the folks in some of our Catholic and Christian schools. So it's a lot of fun to do that. So, and obviously, congratulations to your overachiever daughter. Just like you were, right? Were you the valedictorian at Jefferson?
Thank
or-
goodness she got it from her mom, because she didn't get it from me.
I'm in one of those marriages too. So congratulations to your daughter for sure. And it was great to take in a little bit of the festivities on Friday at Roar Park and see so many people that are here today in the crowd. And thank you to Kevin Miller, who brought not just a bike for the mayor to ride, but also a scooter for the mayor to ride, and had a lot of fun doing one time around on the track, and that was enough for me. But it's going to be a wonderful thing for not just our city, but that neighborhood. And as I was saying earlier, speaking during the public comments section of our meeting, the community interaction that we had leading up to that was really the culmination of the back and forth give and take. You guys want this, we have money for that, how do we make this work? And I just felt great on Friday when I was left that to go to Carol's graduation, and just thinking about how it all came together. So thank you to the people in the community and people in that neighborhood that were passionately advocating for those young people, and the number of kids that were there. It was just great to see. They're all having fun, as Beth and I were talking about a little bit ago. So congratulations to the service department and to our city for that. Mr. Maxfield.
Just reiterate what the mayor said, is congratulations to our graduates. I know Carol and Stebbins graduated last week. Also, we have East Dayton Christian.
They graduated on Friday
It was
also.
Friday as well. So
During the thunderstorm.
yes. So I was in that thunderstorm when I was leaving CTC. So congratulations to them. And again, also what the city manager said is observance of Memorial Day. Just think about anybody that's lost their lives serving their country or limb or anything like that.
The deputy mayor?
Just a reminder that our next community blood drive is coming up June 2nd. The Bloodmobile will be in our parking lot from 3 to 6. If you would like to register, you can do so at donortime.com. Search for City of Riverside. It's a great partnership with the Community Blood Center, which has been renamed to Versity. And they provide blood to the regional hospitals. It's an important resource. Encourage everyone who's able to participate. I'd also like to say a word about where our capital dollars go. And the pump track is a great example of it's a need the community had, and it's a small scale project that has a lot of bang for the buck. And I hope I can speak for the entire council that we encourage those types of things to be part of the process as we plan our budgets and our priorities, that those small scale things that have a large community impact can continue to get dollars and attention. At the same time, these larger scale projects that are multi-year projects, I think it's a false competition when we pit them one against the other. I think a productive way of approaching our capital spending is to do both, and to do it managing your resources. And I think that's what we strive to do. It takes a lot of community input to make that happen, and it takes the attention of a meticulous city administration to make sure that we're following good practices. And I think that's when we come together, we can accomplish that. Hopefully, as we move forward, we can do that. But I would encourage anyone who has small-scale projects that they think that capital dollars should be spent on, talk to us. Let's put it in our priorities. I think that it's important. That's it.
And Mr. Denning.
Well, think people need to understand that we seven don't make the decisions on how that road gets built. We hire the engineering companies that do their best practices and give us that information, and that's where that concept came from. But that nothing's been etched in stone yet. So until we get all the engineering done, we can't. And I think part of that, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Manager, but eventually, once we get to the point where we're getting ready to get ready to build, that's when we'll get community input on information and things like that. When we did Springfield Street, I mean, that's how that process went. We went through all the engineering, and then we had to get on the list to get it built with federal funding, and it's still, and that timeline is 5 years long. So even after the engineering is done, it was 5 years before we got anything, Springfield Street built. So people need to understand this is a long process, and a concept drawing is not the final version. And we have professional engineers that use their best practices and what's the best for what we're trying to accomplish, which is slow down the traffic and still keep traffic moving through that corridor and make it better for everybody. It's not mine or Brenda's or Jesse's final decision to put the roundabout. It wasn't our idea to put the roundabouts in, but this is what engineers are telling us is the best practices at this time. Just like 40 years ago, they told us that the best practices was put the wall in that was supposed to last 25 years, and it's been there for 45 years now and is crumbling and would cost us millions and millions of dollars to replace and leave it the way it is, and we don't want to do that either. So that's why we came up with, let's get an engineer in here and tell us what the best practices to make this better would be, and that's what we work on. Is we hire professionals. That's why we've got Josh. That's why we've got Naya and them to tell us what the best practices is, and then we make a final decision when it's necessary. Don't forget Memorial Day again, so flags will be going out, and we'll and Sunday, the UN will have Springfield Street closed from Harshman to 444. So don't understand that is a thing that's going to happen, and adjust your schedule accordingly and your route to travel.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Denning. I will now adjourn the meeting at 7:02 PM. Thank you, folks.